Welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge, and this is your latest Manchester United news on what could be a sad, big day for Manchester United if what is being reported is true. Is it the end of Old Trafford? Is Old Trafford gone? This is the headline coming in this morning. It's coming in from Chris Wheeler in the Daily Mail that Manchester United will abandon plans to keep Old Trafford if they build a new stadium. There was talk of a reduced capacity that they could use for the women's team and the youth teams, but that is off the table now. How does that make you feel? We're also going to use this. No, we're not going to use that. Why have I clicked that? We're going to imagine we're going to use this. We're actually going to go through interactively Ten Hag's best 11. We know what it is. We think we know what it is anyway. We'll be revealing that, and you can get involved with us as it goes along as well. And we've got a few other topical bits as well. But there's nothing more topical to a Manchester United fan, surely, than the future of Old Trafford. You may well be a football fan that thinks you're only bothered about what happens on the pitch, but this is inherently what we are. This is Manchester United. This is what we do. Old Trafford is, as I've said before, to many people, it is their church. Football is a religion to some. It certainly is, and I believe, a place that should be listed. In the UK, we have places of interest historically that can't be knocked down. There are churches, there are buildings, there are trees. I think Old Trafford should be part of heritage in this country. I think it should be a protected building, and it amazes me that it's not. And this is the story. Manchester United are ready to abandon plans to keep Old Trafford if they build a new stadium. They now realise that scaling down Old Trafford to around 30,000 capacity, hosting academy and women's fixtures, will be too complex and it won't work. That's coming in from the Daily Mail, Chris Wheeler. It also does say that the option of renovating Old Trafford is still on the table. Personally, I think that carrot is being dangled to appease people like me and you who don't want us to leave Old Trafford. Remember, I'm not saying that leaving Old Trafford makes you an enemy of Manchester United. It just means you've got a different opinion. I'm not going to be there chaining myself to Old Trafford when they knock it down. I just would rather we keep the old one and renovate it because it's a place of interest. It is, it means a lot to a lot of people. But you know what? I think they're knocking it down. If you want an opinion, I think they're knocking it down. I think they're knocking it down and they're rebuilding that area. There's going to be a lot of money swishing around for a lot of people. There's a lot of regeneration, a lot of social impact, a lot of housing, a lot of jobs. They're just not going to look at Old Trafford and go, yeah, but it's so important to so many people because it's a place where Sir Bobby played and the Busby Babes played and George Best played. That's not going to really marry up to let's level it. Let's build an amazing top-of-the-range place that's going to be an epicenter for the next 100 years. It's going to be about the money. And you know what? Somebody said Ineos, Old Trafford. I think they will give the stadium rate. You know what? I couldn't give a shit about the stadium rights being given to Apple or, whoever. It doesn't matter. Amazon Prime, I don't care because it won't be Old Trafford anymore. It'll be a new stadium. So if anyone starts moaning when we build a new stadium, we can't give up the stadium rights. Why? It's not Old Trafford. It's not New Trafford. It's a bloody brand new building in an area where we used to have a football ground. Call it the bloody Big Mac Stadium for all I care. I mean, it just doesn't. It's all about. This whole thing's about money, so may as well sponsor absolutely everything. The soul of Man United will be gone when we knock Old Trafford down. So let's not pretend that we want to get moralistic about what a new stadium's going to be called. You don't get to get sentimental about a brand new stadium and say we can't give up the naming rights. If we build a new stadium, sponsor one end for fucking Nike, the other end Adidas, the other side Uber Eats. I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter. What matters is whether we move or not. I think if we move, we know why we're doing it. We're doing it to have a state-of-the-art stadium, regenerate the area, and make a lot of money. That's what it's all about. So if we're going to make money, it's like saying, it's like doing something you shouldn't do, and then halfway along going, well, I don't know. Just crack on with it. Like, if we're going to do it for money, we do it for money. That's what we do. I don't give a shit about the new stadium having naming rights. I don't like Old Trafford having naming rights, but this is the whole problem. And look, I'm not going to start pointing fingers at Sir Jim Ratcliffe on this one, because you know what? It's completely about the Glazers. Their legacy, as I said last night, is going to be the people that caused us to knock Old Trafford down. I mean, for everything they've done to this football club, they will be the reason Old Trafford gets demolished. I mean, that makes me want to cry. Old Trafford demolished. I can't speak. I can't even believe that we will do that, but I think we will. I think that is going to happen, and you've got to look about cause and effect. Sometimes you pick up a problem and you go, look, the only logical way for this football club to survive, really, and compete is to build a new stadium that, you know, and not lose money renovating the old one. Keel says sentimentality made us weak, knock it down. I'm going to be very careful with you, Keel, not to give you a torrent of abuse there, because you're just being very, very abrupt about something that matters to some people. As I've said, if you want a new stadium, that's fine. I'm not going to disrespect you, but don't disrespect people who actually give a shit about this football club and Old Trafford. You might not understand it because you want a shiny new toy, but when you go down the shops later and you buy yourself a meal deal and you vet it, you'll be hungry again soon. And my point is, a shiny new toy ain't shiny forever, but when Old Trafford's knocked down, it's gone forever. You'll never be able to bring it back. It's gone forever and ever and ever and ever. And I think this push for a shiny new stadium... Who are we competing with a shiny new stadium, by the way? The Bernabeu is the Bernabeu. It's the same ground. It's renovated. The new camp is still the new camp. It's just the new camp renovated. Like, what? Whose new stadium are we competing with here? Like, who are we jealous of? Spurs? I mean, wow, it's a great stadium, but I still think White Hart Lane was better. I do. I think that the soul of your football club gets ripped out when you change where you're going. But look, I'm not here to delve into that, because it starts turning into a bit of a blame game. It starts getting a bit heated. I don't want to do that, because, as I said, you know, if you want a new stadium, you want a new stadium. The reason we're having this conversation is what really winds me up. And we're having this conversation because the Glazers will be the people that demolished Old Trafford. And what really frustrates me about this is that I really hope that there is a plan somewhere along the line for Sir Jim Ratcliffe to boot these toxic peasants back across the ocean to the States and ban them from ever coming near this football club again. Because the fact that they still will oversee this and make money out of this makes me want to spew. It really does. I'd be much more comfortable if Sir Jim Ratcliffe owned all of the club and said, look, I would love to keep Old Trafford, but the club is in debt. It will cost this much to rebuild Old Trafford. If we build a new stadium, we can play in Old Trafford to the day before the new stadium's ready. We move across, we knock that down, we make a load of money. It's horrible to have to do it, but I'm spelling it out because that's just the way it's going to have to be. Otherwise, we're just going to sink financially. I don't like that, but I can deal with it because I understand it from Sir Jim Ratcliffe's point of view. What I can't deal with is Sir Jim telling us all that whilst also holding hands with the fuckers who did this. Like, the Glazers are still going to be here owning half. I mean, ultimately, I saw somebody on Twitter earlier, they were completely wrong, but in a way, it sort of makes you think it. And they were saying, Sir Jim's just a puppet for what the Glazers always wanted. They want to knock Old Trafford down to build a new stadium and made a shitload of money. And all this money we're going to make, who's the biggest beneficial from this? The people who own 50% of Man United. So Sir Jim's there fronting this. The Glazers are nowhere near it. So Jim's doing all this regeneration. He's talking to Seb Coe. He's talking to the government. He's got Gary Neville in it. You know, it's all Sir Jim's project. Sir Jim owns 25% and is in charge of the football side of things. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's not even in charge of the fucking business. It's the Glazers. So why is Sir Jim and Ineos and Gary Neville fronting this? Are they minions of the Glazers? Well, they have to be. And I thought, well, I don't see it like that. But ultimately, the Glazers still own over half of this football club. And they're knocking Old Trafford down to build a new stadium. That's what gets me. That's what gets me. It's that those fuckers are still here and they're still making money out of our football club. And I just don't know why that movement stopped. I don't know why it stopped. I really don't know why it stopped. And I wish we could get rid of them because I just don't like them. I don't like what they've done to this football club. I don't like that their legacy is coming into this football club, leaving it to rust for 20 years and then knocking it down to build something new, which will be partly funded by other people. So they keep making money out of this football club. They really, really irritate me. And I don't know why it's off the agenda. I don't know why the Glazers have been left alone. They still own half the football club and their legacy is fucking horrible for this football club. And as somebody in the chat quite rightly said, Manchester United, Anfield, they're never leave. You know, Liverpool are our biggest rival. They're never going to leave Anfield. They're never going to leave Anfield because they just keep renovating it and modernising it, so it never gets old and rusty. They are constantly updating it. I was at Anfield in the summer. Changing rooms, amazing. You walk out the changing rooms, they've got little pods. They've got about 10 different pods for interviews. Like, you know, like at Old Trafford, we do it in the tunnel with the advertising board, one at a time. They've got 10 different pods. Anfield is ridiculously modern, and yet it's old. And that's just because the Glazers never bothered to spend any money on it. It's an absolute crime. It's a crime that we're having this conversation, in my opinion. An absolute crime. I wonder by how much tickets will skyrocket at this new stadium because it will be the fans that will fund it, says Phil. Will the new stadium have Sir Alex stand? Ryan, look, at the end of the day, they will take the Munich clock. They will take the statue. They will call one stadium Sir Bobby Charlton Stadium stand. They'll call the other one Sir Alex Ferguson stand. All those little things will go, but it won't be Old Trafford. There is a big difference between sentiment and legacy, says Patrick Lynch. Old Trafford has decades of history. It represents a place where United, Busby, Ferguson, Charlton, etc. made us what we are. It's disrespectful to be thrown away, mate. I didn't actually think I'd feel like this until I actually started talking about it. But I just can't get my head around the fact that they'll knock it down. I just can't get my head around the fact that they'll knock it down, and they will. And we need to get ready for it. But have no doubts who's behind this. The Glazers. This is the Glazers. I don't even know why Sir Jim is fronting it because he only owns 25% and he's meant to be running the football side of things. So why is Sir Jim running the stadium side of things? The Glazers run this football club. They own half of it. They're the people who have caused it. They should reduce the capacity for the ladies in the academies and build the men a new one. That's what we're talking about, Ryan. They can't do it. This is what the story says. Should play Xerxes as shadow striker behind Rasmus. Great. I see nothing but positivity in this. I get the sentimentality, but the memories and our histories will never change. We have to move with our rivals. What rivals, Hughes lad? You see, if you're going to type something, at least listen and think. What rivals are we moving with? What rivals? Liverpool are at Anfield. Barcelona is still at the Nou Camp. And Real Madrid is still at the Bernabeu. What rivals are we moving with? Spurs? I know we haven't been in the top four for a long time, but I don't see Spurs as a rival, mate. Mark, we'll be so sad to get rid of Old Trafford. I took my daughter on Tuesday. You can't beat it. History and the legends that have played there, says Ashley. Would you support calling it Park Goldbridge, says J Dead? And would you be okay with them taking down Old Trafford if it was to save the club as a whole, says Trey? I mean, it's a ridiculous hypothetical. You're just trying to find a way for me to say I'd take down Old Trafford. So let's just draw a line in the sand. For me, it's unacceptable to knock Old Trafford down. That's my line. I won't cross it. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable, and it's ripping the soul out of a football club to do it. They shouldn't be doing it. I know Gary Neville said that he's not overly bothered about that, but and I know some of you aren't overly bothered about that, and I respect that. But for me, it's completely and utterly unacceptable. But to be honest with you, it's something that I've been fully expecting for the last 5 years because the Glazers have absolutely fucked this football club up. They have. It's true. This is because of the Glazers. It's not because of anybody else. And the fact that they're still here, owning half the football club, is incredible. Absolutely incredible. You know what? I think there's so much to be positive around Man United, and I still, constantly talk about we shouldn't be sacking a manager. There's a lot going on behind the scenes around development and scouting, etc. There is so much going on, but they're still here. the Glazers are still here, and we're still having to deal with the poison and sabotage that they have inflicted on this football club for 2 decades. I don't understand why it doesn't get spoken about anymore. I just don't. I don't understand what have people been bought off? Have they been promised stuff? I don't know. There were so many people doing so much stuff about this, and then the day Ineos came in, they've just all stopped doing it. And yet things are about to happen that if the Glazers did... All I'm trying to say is that 2 years ago when the Glazers owned the football club, if they said they were going to knock Old Trafford down and build a new stadium, there would be protests. There would be uproar. But Ineos come in with 25%. We're going to knock the stadium down and build a new one. Okay, we trust you. It's fine. I just don't get it. I don't get it, really. Zed Marcus says, I've only been to Old Trafford 4 times, but every time I see the stadium, it takes my breath away. Such a shame it may be getting demolished, says Zed Marcus. And the Hughes lad says, Bayern City. Well, sorry, Hughes lad. You've lost. You don't put City in a conversation about history and size. Lost. End of conversation. Bloody City. Big Z says, as an architect, I would love to design a new stadium while retaining the character and features of Old Trafford. What if we had a temporary stadium while doing that, says Big Z. Mate, look, we're going to move on, but they can't. They can't afford to renovate Old Trafford, because to renovate Old Trafford, they've got to play somewhere else for a few years. Playing somewhere else for a few years means you don't earn any money. So basically, what you've got is, you've got a house that you can either sell and buy a new house, and while you're building that new house, you can stay in the house you're in, or you spend that money on the house you're in, but you can't live in it, and you've got to rent somewhere else. That's financially, there is only one thing Man United can do, and that's build a new stadium. So what they've got to do is convince you that the new stadium is the right option. What I'm saying is, it's the only option. They're just not being honest. We're not building a new stadium. You know what, like Neville was saying yesterday, this new stadium thing, they're trying to paint it as it's the only it's the best option. It's the best option because it's shiny and new and it's regeneration. That's what they're trying to sell you. They're trying to sell you that the new stadium is the best option. It's not the best option. It's the only option. The best option, I believe, is to stay at Old Trafford and build an amazing stadium like they have at the Bernabeu, like they have at the Nou Camp, which they could do, but they can't afford to do it. The best option is not to knock Old Trafford down and build a new stadium. The best option is to build on Old Trafford the best stadium. But to do that, we can't afford it because we wouldn't be playing at Old Trafford for years. We'd be spending money on Old Trafford and we wouldn't be making money anywhere else. Whereas if you build a new one, stay in Old Trafford, you can stay in Old Trafford until the day before the new one opens. You keep making money because you've got your Old Trafford receipts, etc. And then you've got your new stadium the day after. They're trying to sell the new stadium as the best option. It's the only option. We need to remember the Glazers to blame for this. I remember going to Old Trafford for the first time in 98-99 when we beat Liverpool in the league, says Dan. Thank you very much. Look, I don't really have much more to offer. It's a big topic. It's not a nice topic. And ultimately, my frustration and anger is solely aimed at the Glazers, who still own the football club. So there we go. Welsh says new is the best option, but it's not, mate. I don't think you're a Man United fan. I'm sorry. I don't like saying it, but I don't think you're a Man United fan, or I think you're very thick. Of course it's not. Of course a new stadium's not the best option. Of course it's not. So you're basically saying the best option for Manchester United is to get the bulldozers in, tear down Old Trafford, which I don't think any genuine Man United fan wouldn't shed a tear about that, and then build a brand new soulless stadium that apparently is amazing. How can that be the best option? The best option is to build that stadium you're talking about on Old Trafford, which is what they've done at the Bernabeu, which is what they've done at the Nou Camp, which is what they're doing at Anfield. That's the best option, but they can't afford to do it. Anyway, I'm going to move on. It's a big topic. I don't want this to turn into like new versus old, because if it does, it will tear this fan base apart, because you're not talking about Qatar and Ineos. You're not talking about buying one centre back or another. You're talking about people who have family members who are no longer here, who have great memories of being at Old Trafford with them or taken to Old Trafford with them. You're talking about players that are no longer here that played in that stadium. So if you think you're going to be some sort of soulless, insensitive little shit that starts bantering people about knocking down Old Trafford, you're not a Man United fan, because you are disrespecting a hell of a lot of people, and you have to see both sides on this. Like I say, if you want to build a new stadium, fine, but don't start taking the piss out of people that don't want it and don't want Old Trafford to get knocked down, because there are a multitude of memories that are attached to Old Trafford that knocking that down will be a very, 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 very sad day. And the people who decide to do it are going to have to live with that legacy for the rest of their lives. Let's move on. Right, from something very, very serious to something that, well, I suppose it is serious, but I want to just go through this very, very quickly. Actually, just on something topical as well. I do want to say this. I don't know what your thoughts are on this. We're going to do what we believe is Ten Hag's best 11 here, but in a topical sense, I did write it down. I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I find this incredible. I find this toxic positivity as bad as toxic negativity. These absolute Zooms, turbo prats. I mean, they're almost as bad as the people who are walking around calling Ten Hag a bold fraud and slagging off, young players or whatever. Toxic negativity, toxic positivity. They make me want to throw up as well. They're either so fucking thick or they just think, I don't know what they're doing. It's incredible to me. So yesterday, I'm working away and I just got sent a couple of things and I was like, what the fuck is this? And basically, to rather than pinpointing where it's from or anything like that, which is just a waste of time, the overarching thing was Marcus Rashford is going to have his best season ever. Marcus Rashford is going to tear it up this season. He's going to have a huge season. Marcus Rashford is back. Marcus Rashford's going to score 40 goals. And I'm like, what are these people doing? What are they doing? What are you talking about? This is a lad who's had a bad 18 months. He's had a good 2 games. I saw it in the game against Southampton. I saw it in the game against Barnsley. The camera never leaves him, whether he's on the touchline or on the pitch. It's like right. I thought Sky brought back player cam at times on Saturday. I was like, oh, player cam's back, because they never left Rashford. And then you got these prats talking about he's going to have his best season ever. He's going to score 40 goals. And I'm like, you're part of the problem. The people who call him Trashford, they're part of the problem. Of course they are. It's, that's just not very nice. But these people are part of the problem as well. What the fuck are you talking about? 40 goals, best season ever. Do you not realise you're putting a pressure on him and you're making a focal point of him, so that when he doesn't score for a couple of games, it'll be Trashford again? Just chill. He started to play well. He doesn't have to go and score 40 goals. If he scores 20 goals, it's still going to be massive for us. Why do we have to go from he's total shit to he's back to world class again? You're not doing anybody any favours. This is, we moan about how the media use Man United and, it's constantly Ten Hag in, Ten Hag out, Rashford shit, Rashford's world class, but some of our fans feed into it because they start talking shit about Rashford's going to score 40 goals now. He's going to win the Ballon d'Or. He's back. He ain't bloody back, is he? He's had 2 good games. Consistency is doing it week in, week out and assessing the performance game to game. Don't start running forward about him being back. Don't start predicting 40 goals, because you'll be the reason he's being called Trashford again when he doesn't score for a month. Just take your time. It's like Man United and it's only Barnsley. I don't think it's only Barnsley. We won 7-0, but if we lose to Palace, it's over again. Just take your time. Go game to game. See what happens against Palace. Stop putting labels on it. Stop putting expectations on it. Stop putting unrealistic expectations on it. Stop talking shit. This is why we get targeted by rival fans, because some of our fans start talking wank. And, you know, and then it goes wrong. And then those same fans are going, sell him, sell him. And I'm like, just calm the fuck down. He's had 2 good games. He's had a load of praise. He looks good. Just chill. Chill. I've really noticed it this season. I don't know whether you have, that we've always had the negativity. That's always been there. But I've started to notice this extreme positivity, and it's just as nauseating and it's just as problematic because it just puts a focus on them. I mean, look, a very, very different thing. But when I was watching the game last Saturday at Southampton and the cameras were constantly on him, they probably think they're doing him a favour. I don't think they are. I think Rashford just needs to get on with him. Just let him do his job. Stop overhyping him again. You know, it'll all be about books and brands and everything like that again. The people around him need to stop all that, but the media need to stop it all as well. And fans need to stop it. Just let him get on with his job. Because that's where it'll all fall down again, when people put too much pressure on him. Just let him get on with his job. And it amazes me. It amazes me how there are people who call themselves United fans who just start coming at it with bullshit after 2 good games. We never learn. Could we as a community try to get listed status for Old Trafford? Minister for Culture, Media and Sport makes final decisions, says Jake. I'd certainly get behind it if somebody had the power to do it. I think it would be a great idea. I don't think it would get through, though, because the government are involved in regeneration of that area at the moment. So Jim is just a front man to take a blame away from the Glazers. Disgrace, they're still here. Ruined the best club in the world, says Dazzo. We need to remember the Glazers are to blame for this, for Dan. Lee, you need to learn how to write, mate. So we should move back to Newton Heath then, Mark. A new stadium is the only way we get back to the top. We needed more revenue to keep up. Yeah, Lee, it's an opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. It's a very mercenary opinion. So, Lee, you sound like the sort of person that would sell everything of value of you to make money. There are people like you, Lee, out there. Fair play. I'm not knocking it. Lee says, let's just build it to make money and get more revenue. And that's, you know, you'd probably get on with the Glazers quite well, Lee, actually. Very similar outlook on life. Destroy history, destroy legacy, destroy reputation, and just chase the dollar, building new things and chasing money. Yeah. Fine, Lee, look, there'll be a lot of people who agree with you, I'm sure. Abhijit says, Rashford revealed in an interview that he's an introvert. Let him play without added pressure or attention and he'll deliver his best performances, says Abhijit. And can we not rent Bolton or the DW Stadium while we renovate Old Trafford and increase ticket prices for a season, says Mod. Yeah, you could do. You could do. Daniel says, Lee, you're basically selling your soul. Some people are happy to do that, though. They are. Right, let's get on to this. I want to go through what we believe is Ten Hag's best 11. I don't believe this. I think we are going to reveal Ten Hag's best 11, but obviously as part of a community, you've all got your say as well, and you're very, very entitled to that. Whether you're Lee or not, you are, of course, entitled to your opinions, and I think a lot of people will actually agree with Lee, as much as some of us don't. I think some people will, and you've got to respect that, of course. But this is what I believe is Ten Hag's best 11. So shout out if you disagree. But Onana in goal. This is not the team that's going to play against Palace, by the way. Some people will be tuning in and doing a bloody preview at 10 o'clock. The preview for Palace is at 2 o'clock today, live. But this is Ten Hag's best 11. So I think, I mean, straight away, I might upset a few people, but I actually think Mazraoui is going to be his starting right back. When everybody's fit, I think Mazraoui is going to be his starting right back. And I'll tell you why. I think he massively values Delo. And I think, you know, I massively value Delo. And I find it very difficult. I mean, look, this is how difficult it is. I like doing either or polls on That's Football. But it's always a great thing when you can find a poll that really splits people down the middle. Vote for Delo or Mazraoui at right back. But this is what I believe Ten Hag's best 11 is. I think Mazraoui is his right back because Mazraoui is his guy. You know, he had him at Ajax. He knows him. He trusts him. And the thing about Mazraoui is, I said before, he looks like he might be that player that just gives you 7 out of 10 every week. Sometimes 8 or 9, but never below 7. I think he's just... I think Maz is going to be his player at right back. Obviously, we have so many injuries and we need to rotate, so it's not like Dalot's going to be sat on his arse, but I do think Mazraoui will be the guy. Obviously, even when you click Luke Shaw on here, he doesn't appear. Here he is. Obviously, I think Luke Shaw... It's easy, isn't it? I know he's not fit, but Luke Shaw is the left back, I think. Funny enough, I was playing EAFC this morning, and my first game, I played Man United against Crystal Palace. 15 minutes in, player goes down injured, Luke Shaw. Even the game's got it right. Hampton says, I'd be happy to sell my soul, but never United's. So yeah, I think Luke Shaw and Mazraoui will be his fullbacks. Obviously, we know Martinez and I would say De Ligt over Yoro, to be honest. I think that is an interesting point, but obviously Mazraoui, Shaw, Martinez, and I think De Ligt will be the right-sided first choice centre-back. Yes, we're going to get injuries. How often we see that back four together is open for debate, but I do think that Yoro is the up-and-coming left-back. And I think, centre-back, and De Ligt will be the number one choice with Martinez. And to be honest with you, that back four, if you could get it fit, would be very, 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 very good. But that's how I think he will line up in there. Remember, I'm giving you Ten Hag's best 11 here. Ugarte is clearly the guy. He's got to prove it. But I think Ugarte will start over Casemiro. I think that's why we bought him. We wouldn't have bought Ugarte if we thought Casemiro was good enough. So I think Ugarte, 100%, is meant to be that number 6 that, you know, gets the ball and moves the ball to more creative players. I do believe that Mainu is the guy that's going to play next to him. I think it's very, very obvious that Ten Hag holds Mainu in massively high esteem. I mean, even in games where against Liverpool, he's playing Collier and Mount in the second half when we're 2-0 down, is just incredible. The trust he has in Mainu. And there's just no way that he's losing his place in that starting lineup. I think that Ten Hag, to coin a phrase from Romano, is in love with the way that Mainu plays football. And I think he is 100% straight into Ten Hag's best 11. As, of course, is Bruno Fernandes, captain of the team. There's just no way Bruno's not in that team, and there's no way he shouldn't be in that team. And as I said, as the captain, he's a focal point. And I hope that we can start to see a more patient Bruno in this new United side that we're seeing at the moment. Because I think if we can, then we'll see an even better Bruno Fernandes. So some people are a bit confused who are tuning in. We're just revealing Ten Hag's best 11. We're not talking about the game against Crystal Palace, and there's a lot of people laughing about Luke Shaw. Obviously, he's got to be fit, but we're talking about, I suppose, in some ways, we're not talking about Ten Hag's best 11. We're talking about his dream 11, if everybody's fit. But it ain't looking bad so far. It now gets interesting because I think that... where shall I go next to add a bit of drama? Okay. Yeah, Rasmus. We'll go striker first because I think a lot of people are now waiting to see what the wingers are going to be. I think Rasmus is still his number one striker. I think Xerxes will push, and I think Xerxes can push, and I think Xerxes could get that position. But I still believe, as of today, Ten Hag's dream 11 in his head when everybody's fit is Rasmus. I still think Rasmus is the player. You know, Ten Hag spent a lot of money on him, has always spoke glowingly about him, and really, really thinks highly of him. I don't think the gap between Rasmus and Xerxes is massive, and I don't think it's unobtainable, and I certainly don't think Xerxes is just going to be sat there as the bench option, but I do think that Rasmus is in his best 11. This now gets difficult, but I'm not going to hesitate because I do believe Ahmad is his best player on the right-hand side, and I think he's realised that himself. I think 3 or 4 months ago, very, very different. But I think over the summer, over the pre-season, and over the start of this season, I genuinely think that Ten Hag does see Ahmad as his starting right winger in his best 11. I think he'd love Anthony to do it still. And I think there's still a possibility that to accommodate Rashford and Garnacho, he might put one of them on the right. But I think he's come round to the fact that Ahmad is his best right winger. And actually he is his best. And the funny thing is, he is his best right winger. I think he is. I don't think there's any debate about that. I think Ahmad is our biggest danger when you look at the start to the season. Creativity-wise, him and Garnacho are our best wingers. But Ahmad just makes things happen as well. And he suits playing off the right. Whereas I feel that Garnacho and Rashford suit playing off the left. Which brings us to the bone of contention, because this is not my best 11. This is Ten Hag's best 11. As of now, if he could pick everybody who was fit and put his best 11 out there. And obviously, there are people who are not starting who I think are valuable to him. You know, Dalot would be on the bench. Mount would be on the bench. Xerxes would be on the bench. Yoro would be on the bench. So if you're not in the best 11, it doesn't mean you're irrelevant, because as we know with Manchester City and Arsenal and Liverpool, you've got to have a squad. So there are good players that would be on the bench that Ten Hag really values, but we're talking, you can only pick 11 players. I believe, and I might get pelters for this, that it would be, I think he's beyond Rasmus at the moment. Where is he? There he is. I believe that that's Ten Hag's best 11 when everybody's fit at the moment. I think it's ridiculously close with Garnacho, and I think Ten Hag massively values Garnacho. But I think it's obvious that Ten Hag, we just got to look at the last 2 years. The guy that's had Rashford's back more than anybody is Erik Ten Hag. The guy that's picked Rashford through the bad times is Erik Ten Hag. And I think he massively values Garnacho, but I think if it's push comes to shove, he will pick Rashford over Garnacho and use Garnacho from the bench. So that is Ten Hag's best 11, in my opinion, but I don't think I'm wrong. I genuinely don't. I mean, we're never going to know the truth because Ten Hag wouldn't reveal it, but I genuinely think everybody fit, that's his ideal best 11. And I tell you what, it's not a bad team, is it? Where would you pitch that? Because I would pitch that comfortably in the top 4. And if it grew together properly, I think it has the potential to get into the conversation with Liverpool and Arsenal. I'm not saying it's good enough to beat Man City. I don't think anybody is good enough to beat Man City. But I do think that team is a top 4 team. And I do think that team is a team that if it grows and plays good football, can compete with Liverpool and Arsenal. So, you know, and look at your bench. You've got Yoro, Maguire, Dalot, who can play left back and right back, Casemiro, Mount, Collier, Xerxes, Garnacho, and others. So look, it's not a bad team. I know the chat are getting a bit frustrated, and if you're not watching live, get in the comments as well. But I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I think it's a really useful exercise because we'll never see that team. The funny thing is we'll never see it because I don't think it's very rare for any manager to ever put a best 11 out. But I like that team, and I think that what somebody just said, what is it your best 11? You're an arsehole. You're an absolute arsehole. Is that my best 11 with what we've got? Well, I'll tell you where I'm conflicted instead of telling you, right? I'm conflicted at right back. I think Dalot is so important going forward, the way he inverts into the midfield, and he's so mobile and he's got such great stamina. I think it's wafer thin between Dalot and Mazraoui. 54% of you went with Mazraoui, 46% went with Dalot. So I think that one's hard, really, really hard. I'm comfortable with everything else. Obviously, if Shaw's fit, I think he's a fantastic player. I'm happy with the midfield 3. That would be my midfield 3. I'm happy with Rasmus, although I do think Xerxes can push him. I'm I'm happy with Ahmad on the right. I think he stands alone. I don't think Ahmad's close. Yeah, you could put Rashford on the right or Garnacho on the right, but you're just doing that because you don't want to drop them. That's not the way to build your best 11. You don't kick Ahmad out the team because you're scared to drop Garnacho or Rashford. So Ahmad is there. I would go Garnacho over Rashford, but it's hard. If you'd have asked me a week ago, I'd have said Garnacho. I would go Garnacho over Rashford because, like Ahmad, it's the creativity that Garnacho brings. He makes things happen, whereas Rashford, for me, has always been a striker on the wing. And if he gets you 20 goals, it's valuable. It's really difficult between Rashford and Garnacho, but I would go Garnacho. It's really difficult between Dalot and Mazraoui. I'd probably go Dalot, just because I know more about Dalot than Mazraoui and he's still quite fresh and new. But I think that's what I would do. I think this is Ten Hag's best 11. And I would argue that with anybody. I don't think anybody can make a case to take a player out based on Ten Hag and what we know about him. Mazraoui is his player that he's brought in. Rashford is his player that he's backed for 2 years. And I think Rasmus over Xerxes at the moment is what Ten Hag would do. So that, for me, I'm very confident is Ten Hag's best 11 in his head at the moment. It can change. I add at the moment there on purpose. It can change. Stitch says, Old Trafford being knocked down is like theft in a multi-storey car park. It's wrong on so many levels. But that's a good one. I hope we can get back. I don't know what this Anthony 2008 stuff is, but obviously it makes you lot laugh. Mark, if we abandon Old Trafford for a while when the new stadium is being made, where do you think we will play then? Should we capture City's ground? We won't do that, Lokesh. We'll play in Old Trafford until the day before the new stadium opens because it's going to get built next door. That's the whole point. It's money. Would take years to renovate every stand at massive costs, says Andy Hale. As I said, it's really sad that Old Trafford will get knocked down, and it's because of the Glazers, and it makes me sick, and we shouldn't be quiet about that, but it's the only option. That's the sad thing. It's the only option, but it's not the best option. It's the only option. You can't polish a turd. Sir Jim, Gary Neville, and everyone are going to tell us that building a new stadium's amazing, it's the best thing for the city, etc. It isn't. The best thing would be to regenerate and build a new Old Trafford like they have with Real Madrid. But we can't afford to do it. I always think honesty is the best policy. Instead of trying to tell us that a new stadium and regeneration is the best thing in the world, why don't you tell us we've got to build a new stadium and knock Old Trafford down because the Glazers fucked us? But they won't do that because they're still working with the Glazers. And this is why I wish we'd get rid of the Glazers, because I think if Sir Jim Radcliffe owned the whole club, he'd be free to speak truthfully and say, I don't want to break. Look, listen to me. You know, we've looked at the plans. I love Old Trafford. We don't want to knock it down. But the Glazers have well and truly fucked us. Debt. It's rusting. We've got nowhere to go. We'd love to be doing what Liverpool are doing. I've spoken to Sir Dave. We'd love to be the Bernabeu. But bottom line is, the Glazers have absolutely bankrupted this football club and left it to rot. What are we going to do? It's not the best option, but it's the only option to get this football club back on a level keel, competing. And that's the truth. And no, I'm not related to Sean Dyche. I'm just a posh version who is also a billionaire. So yeah, I think I'm wide awake to the business point. I don't blame Sir Jim. I blame the Glazers, and I think it's the only option. But God, it hurts. It really, really does. Andy Hale, thanks for being a member for 15 months. Right. Anybody going to come back on that, or do you agree that that is Ten Hag's best 11 when everybody's fit? I'd have Garnacho instead of Ahmad at the moment, says George. I disagree, because I think you're moving somebody out of their best position to accommodate. So, look, I don't like that cowardice. I don't like when managers do that. I don't like it when they drop, you know, Ahmad is our best right winger because that's his position. Garnacho's not a right winger. He's a left winger. So I don't want to drop Ahmad to accommodate Garnacho. But it might happen. It might happen. Xerxes and Dalot in would just get rid of Shaw, says United 1. And I believe Dalot will join Real Madrid within the next 2 years, given his rapid development. Yeah, Abhijit, I do. I genuinely think you might be right. Game tied, 65th minute game, needs a spike. Who are you going to sub in, says the Duke. What, from that team? Xerxes, Garnacho. Yeah, definitely. Talking about predicted 11s, that will not be the team against Crystal Palace for many reasons. We have got our live preview of Crystal Palace at 2 o'clock today. You can join me for that, so make sure you smash a like and subscribe. If you didn't watch the show live, get involved. Also, I've got a very big bit of news coming in at 2 o'clock if you like my Man United FIFA career mode. Many people thought it was starting tomorrow at 3 o'clock. There's a very big chance it might be starting today. I will give you an update at 2 o'clock. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. I'll speak to you all in a bit.